welcome to the very first episode of Comics and Coffee with Dad, man. First of all, I want to thank y'all for being here. All right, first and foremost, without the support of y'all, man, I would not have been doing this. I've always had a passion for doing podcasting and content creation in general, but to interact with y'all is really the highlight of that experience, right? So first of all, I want to thank y'all for being here. Also, real quick, random, I know I got a chunk missing out my poster. Y'all don't need to tell me that, all right? You ain't got to say nothing. I got kids. I got an excuse. I'm your host, Manny, and a little bit about myself before we get started with today's episode. I'm 34 years old, been reading comics since I was around 12 years old. Now, I ain't no expert or nothing like that, but I do have an opinion, and I do have a passion and a deep love for everything comic books, media, movies, video games, all that stuff. Now, as far as what exactly the podcast will be about going forward, well, spoiler alert, it's pretty simple. Comic books, comic book movies, comic book video games, comic books. We're talking about all that, and we're going to have fun. We're going to share the passion with each other, and this is going to be a great experience. Now, to start, the majority of my first episodes will be on YouTube until I can extract audio and put it on Apple Podcasts and whatever other podcast platform I can put it on. But as far as social media goes, I'll be using Instagram, TikTok, Threads. Just in case any of you like more short form content, I'll post clips from the podcast episodes over there on those platforms. So if you be so kindly, go ahead and go follow me over there. And with that out the way, introductions and whatnot, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the very first episode, which is going to be the DCU. Before we get into all that, I feel like I need to cover some things first, right? The DC live action movies have, for the most part, have had a lot of things in common, right? Number one, most of them have all been self-contained movies inside their own universes, not really interacting with the big names like Batman or Wonder Woman. Like, for example, if we've had a Superman movie in the past, 9 times out of 10, that Superman didn't interact with a Batman, right? So we got Christopher Reeve, we got Brandon Routh, the Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's trilogy. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Superman wasn't a character in that universe. Neither was even really more grounded heroes like Green Arrow, The Question, stuff like that. No, they weren't a part of it. Instead, Nolan's universe was its own self-contained universe, which was all good and well. Another example can be seen with Zack Snyder's Snyderverse. His movies consisted of several big names: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the Suicide Squad, just to name a few. Unlike the other movies I mentioned, the Snyderverse really did have all these characters interact with each other and do some sort of team up, right? But it still failed. It failed due to inconsistent storylines. It failed due to, in my opinion, miscasting. I was okay with Henry Cavill Superman. I loved Man of Steel. To this day, it's my favorite DCEU movie, DC Extended Universe, for those who don't know. But Henry Cavill Superman didn't give me hope, which a lot of Superman fans can agree, even non-Superman fans can agree, that's hope. Hope is one of the central core elements of the Superman character. But I didn't get that with Henry Cavill Superman, despite me really liking the character and his portrayal of the character. Man of Steel had an amazing score. The cast was amazing. The action scenes, man. The action scenes to this day really are some of my favorite action scenes in a superhero movie, where there feels like there's risks and consequences to the actions of these superpower beings. I loved it. Now, with all that said, can you imagine my sadness almost when I found out that the DCEU had been canceled? And it's crazy because me and my wife had just finished seeing Black Adam, and we all know Black Adam was, in my opinion, the movie was pretty mid, right? It was pretty mid. It was a good action flick. The acting was okay. Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate, amazing casting. Spoiler alert if you ain't seen it, but Henry Cavill Superman showed up at the end of the Black Adam movie. So you can imagine my excitement when I'm like, yo, the GOAT is back, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, blah, 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 let's go. I think it was like a week or so later, they had announced that the DCU had been canceled, Henry Cavill not coming back as Superman, none of the characters, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot. Your boy was a little sad, man, I ain't gonna lie to you. Me being a huge fan of DC Comics, and I love Marvel Comics too, but if you gave me a preference, like if you put me on an island, right, with like Jack Sparrow and one other item, I'm going to choose a DC comic, right? My question was, are we ever going to have a coherent, consistent, fun, high risk, high reward type DC live action universe? The animated universe is doing really well. We've had Crisis, we've had Batman Under the Red Hood, we've had Justice League War and Aquaman, and we've had and they all really connect, and well, not all of them, but most of them connect with each other, and it felt good. But I'm like, yo, this ain't scratching my live action itch, you know what I'm saying? So will we ever get that? And enter James Gunn and Peter Safran with another attempt to pull DC out of the ashes of failure. Well, not failure necessarily, but just pull them out of the ashes of inconsistency, you know. And they made a lot of promises. We're gonna get into that in a little bit, but when I heard this news, it piqued my curiosity. So a little bit after that, James Gunn came on. I think it was like later in the year, fall or something like that, and he had announced that his slate, his chapter 1, his phase 1 essentially would be titled Gods and Monsters, and that his first superhero movie live action would be Superman. But originally it was titled Superman Legacy, but in recent times they dropped the Legacy moniker and now it's just Superman, right? In addition to this, James Gunn also announced that his DCU would include not only movies, but it would include animation and it would include video games.
Peter and I, along with a group of very talented writers, have started to map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will be in film, television, and gaming.
At the time, and to be honest, still even now, that's, in my head, I'm thinking, in my opinion, that's a very ambitious like goal to set for yourself, right? Like it's ambitious. It's not impossible. It's just ambitious. Given that I'm a little biased, I love James Gunn's work. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. Scooby-Doo was one of my favorite nostalgic live action movies when I was a kid. Given that I love James Gunn's work, you can imagine that, yeah, I was curious, but I was also like simultaneously excited to find out more about this DCU, this new DC universe, and find out what his plans are. And let me tell y'all one thing that I love about, you know, James Gunn, and it's crazy because we're so close to Superman. Superman is right at the time of this post. Superman is right around the corner. During the time when he first announced Superman to now, crazy to even think like it's been that amount of time since between like when he first announced Superman as the first big superhero live action movie of his universe and now where we're so close to it being released. And I say that because one thing that I really appreciated during that time frame is how transparent and how communicative he was with the fandom and with people, like on Threads, on Instagram, stuff like that. Man, listen, I can't remember the last time a director slash creator or whatever you want to call his position, I can't remember the last time somebody was that involved in the fans and showed that much passion for a project that he or she is working on. To know some of the things like the creative processes behind the scenes stuff, you can tell he has a lot of passion for this project. And like I said, a lot of past DC live action movies have all had a couple things in common, but there is one other thing that they've for the most part kind of lacked, which is that fantastical element of having a comic book movie. And what I mean by fantastical is that the feeling that a comic book gives you, where it just takes your mind and your attention and you're just transported through like in-depth immersion. And it's that immersion, that fantastical immersion that I love about comic books. One of the best things, one of many things I love about comic books, right? But the live action DC movies of the past have really not had that fantastical element. You know, the closest that kind of comes to mind is the 1997 Joel Schumacher Batman and Robin movie. while the movie barely made its money back and critically it was considered a failure, I enjoyed the movie as a 7-year-old. Am I like, yo, am I the only one, yo? The suits, the Batmobile design still remains one of my favorite Batmobile designs live action. Matter of fact, no, they're not even live action, just my favorite Batmobile designs of all time, right? Movie did have a fantastical element to it almost, right? With the puns and the goofy one-liners and the gadgets, you know, the Joel Schumacher Batman movie really didn't feel as grounded in reality as other iterations of the characters that we've had. The Joel Schumacher Batman reminded me of the 80s Hanna-Barbera cartoon Super Friends, man. Y'all don't know Super Friends? I got you. Hold on. Super Friends was a cartoon back in the 80s. I think it ran from like the mid 70s to like the early 80s or something like that. And it was a DC cartoon that premiered on Boomerang. It was a channel back in the day. It was considered a very goofy interaction of all the various DC characters. And honestly, that cartoon was one of my first introductions to the world of DC. But despite the Joel Schumacher Batman and Robin movie having some sort of fantastical element to it, it still didn't scratch that itch, man. It didn't scratch that itch that I had of like I said, that element of that feeling that a comic book gives me. One thing that I am excited for in regards to his DCU is the fact that he openly stated that his DCU would have a much more fantastical element to his universe. Not even just like, well, I'm sure like the universe will have a fantastical element, but I'm also sure that certain movies will just fit the tone of whatever, you know, he has in mind. But for the most part, listen, I'm hoping his Batman, when his Batman pops up, I'm trying to see his Batman move on some crazy stuff. Like, hold on, y'all remember the movie Ninja Assassin, right? Y'all remember how them ninjas was moving in that movie, right? I want my boy Batman to turn into a literal shadow when he's stalking people. That's what I want. I want that animated series movement. You know what I'm saying? Both like detective work and the fighting. Honestly, I'm trying to have my boy move on some Nosferatu type stuff, bro. That's how I need the DCU Batman to be moving. Now, let's get into the big blue Boy Scout. Superman is right around the corner. Okay, let's talk about that real quick. As I've said off camera to a lot of my friends, I am super excited, no pun intended, for this Superman movie. And I'm gonna tell you a couple of reasons. Yes, I tried to get the Amazon Prime early showing. Yes, I am excited for more of a brighter Superman movie. Yes, I'm happy my boy got the trunks back. I love the trunks. I don't know what everybody's problem is with the trunks. I love the trunks, right? Now I could do without the costume having trunks, right? But I prefer the costume to have trunks. The trunks give a sense of familiarity to the character, right? So I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say, for example, right, I'm about to drown, right? And Superman, he come over and try to save me, right? I'm gonna be calm. I don't care if I'm gonna be floating just like this, but I know I'm about to get saved because I see this man, all powerful God, but he wearing some luchador tights. But it makes me feel comfortable. It makes me in like a life or death situation. I don't know if that makes sense, man. Now, one thing that I've loved about this movie so far is the marketing. Especially that commercial they recently had with the toys.
Monster is destroying the city. This looks like a job for Superman. He flies in with a powerful punch. Ew! Slime explosion.
Listen, that commercial gave such a feeling of nostalgia for all my early 2000s baby, people who grew up in the early 2000s, right? Y'all know that them early 2000s toy commercials used to hit different. And that's kind of what that's what this toy commercial gave me, plus all the behind the scenes stuff, the different like little spots for Crypto and the robots. To see that the robots are practical, the passion that he has for this movie it just cannot be denied. I don't care how you feel about the new Superman. I don't care if you one of them Snyder cultists that talk about, oh, this new David Superman suck movie ain't even come out yet. Shut your new Superman sucks. Bring back Henry. Look, man, I loved Henry, but it's time to move on. Respect the past, embrace the future. All right, it's okay. You gonna be all right. You're gonna be all right. Go buy Man of Steel on Blu-ray and just rewatch it your whole life. You'll be cool. Let us enjoy some stuff, man. You can't deny that the man has a passion for this project. Doesn't matter what you think about the character. Doesn't matter what you think about this iteration of the character. The man has a passion. He has a lot more passion than a lot of these directors and creators of some of these Marvel products, you know, but that's a conversation for a different podcast episode. Another thing I want to see from the DCU is more quality over quantity. And I'm gonna bring up Marvel again, right? Marvel, the as much as I've enjoyed some of the Marvel movies from like Phase 4 and Phase 5, no, I'm so it don't hit the same like the Infinity Saga did. It doesn't. I understand it's the multiverse saga. I understand all that, but you know, with the whole Jonathan Majors thing, and that's conversation for another day. My point is, the DCU, I wanted to focus more on quality over quantity. In my opinion, I feel like with the Marvel TV shows and stuff like that, and some of these shows have been misses, man. It seems like they just pump them out just for the sake of pumping them out. Marvel has been more focused on quantity over quality instead of quality over quantity. And that hurt them. That hurt them. They've had a lot of misses. So DC, I need y'all to stay focused. All right. Keep the passion, have good quality control, and just focus on quality over quantity. Get finished scripts. Just focus on that. And I'm telling y'all, I will be seated day one for y'all projects, man. Also, I need my boy Etrigan in the DCU. My boy Etrigan needs some love. Please, just give me the demon, please. Moving on to the latest news. Matt Reeves has officially finished the Batman Part 2 script. Give it up for the homie. Finally, right? I'm not sure when they're supposed to be filming. I've seen a few different dates about when they're supposed to be filming. If anybody has any information regarding that, please let me know. But what I do know is what I would like to personally see from the Batman Part 2. Batman Part 1, to me, was an absolute joy to watch and experience. The score, the cast, the portrayal of detective work, it's probably gonna be a hot take. The portrayal of detective work in the Batman Part 1 was a better representation than the detective work in the Christopher Nolan films. That's just what I think. Listen, don't shoot the messenger, all right? Now, I ended up giving the movie a score around like a 9 out of 10. I think it was like an 8.5, 9 out of 10 or something like that. But despite all that, one thing I want to see in the sequel to the Batman Part 1 is the Court of Owls. Now, the Court of Owls don't even really got to be the main villains, right? But I do want them teased in a certain type of way in Part 2. They could be the main antagonist for Part 3. I'm cool with that, but I do want to see them mentioned in Part 2. Now, if you don't know what the Court of Owls is, let me put y'all on game real quick. Now, the Court of Owls made their first appearance in Batman #1 in November of 2011, I believe. And basically, they're an army that consists of a high society of these dudes called Talons. And basically, they've been in Gotham and been pulling the strings with a lot of events for, like, I'm talking hundreds of years. They're a secret society comprised of really the most elite and corrupt figures in Gotham. And they've been a pretty consistent antagonist to Batman. And really, if y'all don't do anything else, read some materials involving the Court of Owls. Okay, you can Google it, but read some material involving the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls have pushed Bruce to his limits, unlike really I've never seen, other than maybe the Joker, Bane physically, but if we're talking mentally, really the Joker. Now, with the finale of the Penguin, a lot of people seem to point out that there was or might have been some sort of Court of Owls tease in the finale episode, or finale in general. I kind of see it, you know what I'm saying? I kind of see it, but we gonna have to wait and see what Matt got up his sleeve. Now, another thing I would love to see in the Batman Part 2 is Barbara Gordon, the introduction of Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon is one of my favorite DC characters, other than Green Arrow and the Joker, obviously. She's essentially the backbone of the Bat family with the tech that she runs and being Oracle. She's a pretty integral part to the team, if not one of the most important parts to the team besides Batman. So I would love to see her properly represented in a Batman, like the Pattinson Batman movie. Now, obviously, this would be pre-Joker incident, but Even if they want to go like the Joker route, maybe it happened off camera and she's already paralyzed, I'd be cool with that too. That is a wrap on the very first episode of Comics and Coffee with Dad, man. Yeah, let me hear that. Let me get some. Let me give him applause. I appreciate y'all. Please do not hesitate to like, share, subscribe, drop a comment down below on what your thoughts on the DCU. Are you excited to watch the new Superman movie? Are you excited for Matt Reeves, the Batman Part 2, to finally have proof that the script is finished? And let me know what you guys are most excited to see in your wishes for this new DCU. Again, I appreciate everybody for watching and supporting, and I'll see y'all on episode 2. It's gonna be a good one.